What's up, friends? Thank you so much for tuning in to the Be Less Unfit Performance podcast, YouTube show. You're going to notice over the course of these videos that, I've changed a lot. I filmed these over the course of 2 years. So as my life changed, you see my body change. 1. 2, I changed the way I was going to use these videos. They were going to only be an add-on to the program. Instead, I wanted everybody to be able to have this great information, and so now they're live. If you have any questions or want to know more about the Be Less Unfit program, please head over to sampogue.com or belessunfit.com to learn more and check it out. In the meantime, please enjoy this amazing show and learn more about our guests by going down to the comment section bio area and click what they have going on. I'm so blessed that they said yes to helping me out, and I want you to go learn from them as well. So enjoy the show, have a great day, and please remember to subscribe. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Be Less TV show. I'm your host, Sam Pogue. I'm sitting here in beautiful Boulder, Colorado with my homie, Mrs. Sarah Jameson, in Vancouver, Canada. Sarah and I had the amazing opportunity to work together on it and have the opportunity to work together and move together and learn and just share time. And really love the approach she takes with her clients and her athletes around durability and getting them to install movement into their life and helping them get out of pain and open up opportunities to do more with your body. I think what happens for a lot of people who are coming to this program, they realize that the way they used to use their body or the way they used to train is not the way they can train anymore, right? When you're 22 and fresh into the workforce, like, yeah, you can do 10 CrossFit classes and 40 spin classes and 20 miles of running a week. And as Sarah will tell you, like, that will crush you, which is how she got to where she is. And then to be able to look at like, oh, I'm 35 with a kid now. How do I still keep my body moving? Because yeah, you may not be wanting to jam on 20 spin classes a week, but you're going to get to a point where you're like, oh, that kid moves really fast, and I can't keep up, or I can't get on the ground to play with my kid who's crawling right now, or I can't pick my child up. And so when we start reframing the way of what our body does for us and what we can't do with it, we need to start re-looking at fitness. And I think Sarah's going to be a really great person to really leverage this conversation to look at, like, fitness doesn't need to be about sets and reps and going and crushing your soul, but about how to use your body and how your body works so that way you can unlock potential going forward. And then you can open up the opportunity to go lift weights and do Olympic weightlifting and kettlebells and all the other shit. But we want to first at least provide a framework and an idea around why just moving your joints is important and what that's going to open up. So without further ado, Mrs. Sarah Jameson, what's up? Welcome. Great to see your smiling face.
Thanks, Sam. Yeah, no, I'm pumped. This is something that obviously is a huge passion of mine and has been for decades. And it's really funny because, very similar to you, we got into the industry a long time ago. So when I entered the industry, I was, 20 years old, fresh faced, ready to take on the world, ready to like lift everything I possibly could, wanted to work out with the guys in the gym. And really there were two options. You either lifted weights or you did aerobics. And I like to dominate both of them. I started very early in my career with working with people that were of an older population, elders, I like to call them. So I had a great opportunity really early on in my career to really look at kind of what was going on when you were like, hey, I'm 20, but I'm going to be 40 and 50 and 60 at some point in time. Is this how I want to move? There was no talk at all about mobility. There was no talk about what do you do when your body breaks down. Physiotherapy was stuff that was in clinics. There weren't a lot of independent physiotherapy clinics back in the early 2000s.
Which is physical therapy for the Americans listening.
Yeah,
physiotherapy is the Canadian version.
Sorry. PTs,
You're good.
PTs. And so it was really interesting is that, within the first 5 years of my career, here I was, wanting to lift weights and doing all the things. But most of my clients were like, hey, I got a shoulder thing going on. My knees hurt when I squat. My back is always sore, all of these things. And it really, hit home really early that like, how are we setting clients up for success? Working with the athletes and the 20-year-olds, that shit's easy. That is easy stuff because they might not move well, but they move well enough to do their sport. They move well enough to be able to get in and out of positions. And then you start getting into 40s and 50s and things just start breaking down. And so early on in my career, I started looking at, well, when does that happen? And why does this happen? I had an opportunity to work in a physical therapy clinic for 5 years. and was able to be their resident movement specialist and pain specialist. And that gave me another perspective of being able to look at, so when people are coming in with these chronic issues and these injuries that really shouldn't be there because they're just persistent all the time, something needs to change. We as an industry need to start really looking at the pink elephant in the room, which is chronic pain, chronic persistent aches and pains. You know, as trainers, we're taught that, you know, a red flag is pain. So we refer it out, we don't work with it. But the reality is you can't fucking ignore it either, because it is here. And as trainers and coaches, we are swimming upstream every single session to try to peel away the layers of compensation that our clients are building up just through daily lifestyle, from sitting at a desk for 8 to 12 hours a day, from being remote in isolated positions that we're seeing right now.
Would you explain on that for a second, what a compensated position is? Just because I'm sure people hear it, but like don't really get into like what that does. Yeah.
A lot of this, a lot of this. So you work with desk jockeys. You have people that sit at a desk for 8 to 10 hours. The average person is spending, I believe it's 10.3 hours looking at a screen nowadays as well. So that's something that we need to consider. Being in the seated position for that long, and then having to really, if you think about how much someone sits, they commute. So most of the time they're going to sit to commute. They're going to sit at their desk. They're going to come home. They're going to sit to have dinner. They're going to sit to watch some television or have some family time. So that's a lot of stress on the body. Humans are meant to move. We're not meant to be sedentary. We're not meant to sit for that long. And in North America, unfortunately, that is just what our lifestyle has adopted to. So people are coming in with a lot more back injury, and persistent chronic pain of the lower back is the first thing that we see in pain science and pain research. Neck pain as well, specifically from texting and from having this poor posture position all the time, and starting at a very young age as well, because everybody has a cell phone at the age of 9 now. Mm-hmm. We also have shoulder injuries that are coming in hot. And I think a lot of that is just, CrossFit has been an amazing thing for the general population, but I don't think that we were ready for getting into those big lifts early on, because we are seeing a lot of people, general population, coming in with a lot of shoulder issues. Mm-hmm. And it creeps up on you. It's not like you go out for a run and then you twist your ankle and you know that you twist your ankle, so then you can rehab it. It's people go, I can't, all of a sudden I can't put my shoes on or my socks on. I can't touch my toes anymore, right? Or as a new mom, I had some chronic pain postpartum, even though I'm a corrective coach. I'm a pain specialist. I do all the things right. Shit happens. You pop a human into the world, and then all of a sudden you're picking a 40-pound beast of a child at a very, mechanically disadvantaged position, and things can start to go awry, because as you transition through life, your movement changes, and your movement needs change. The number one thing that, that diminishes as we age is joint health. Mm-hmm. That's bona fide, written in science and studies.
I think so many people get to that point with joint health to where, they become their ailments, they become their injuries, because the education about oh, that's reversible. I remember I was sitting on the couch one day and I was doing wrist circles, and my mom's like, oh, are you okay? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, well, why are you moving your wrist? Are you hurt? And I'm like, oh, I'm moving it so I don't hurt. And she was like, that didn't connect, because that's not the message. And the tough part with the generation above us, and even people in our generation, is that their physical therapy, physiotherapy has been around, and people know oh, I go to the chiropractor after I got my car wreck, and I go to physical therapy. And then maybe they do their little physio band, arm external rotations in the gym, and maybe that, if you're doing that, dope still, but whatever. But a lot of people don't, they didn't get the result. Sure, I walk after my knee injury, or I walk, but I'm not out of pain. And so I think pain just becomes this lingering thing that limits us, and then it becomes it to where it's oh, I can't do that, or I can't put my own bra on, or I can't pick my kid up, or I can't. And then the other side is well, if you hurt your shoulder, don't put your shoulder up here, right? So consistently we're getting this message around just don't do it, just don't use it, don't ignore it. And in this conversation is going to go very differently to where the cue is to move it, right? Yeah. And to start introducing some safety and some security in that, and to help get you out of pain. And I just wanted to stop and touch on that, because I know a lot of people listening to this, oh, I have all those things. I have all those things. I can't do this because I have it. And that's where I'm that's why Sarah's here, is to look at you might have low back pain. You might have neck pain. You have shoulder pain. Let's look at okay, let's acknowledge that you have it. And let's look at a course of action to get you out of it. You may not go bench 500 pounds again like you were when you're 19. Maybe, I hope you can. But let's at least get you to the point where you can do a push-up with your kid in your back. or if your child decides to do the running jump from the couch to like your body while you're like bent over picking something up and you have to catch a 40-pound ball while you're in this position, like your body should probably be prepared for that. Like I've lived with triplets, like, yeah, that's a very real position. Like, oh, you're gonna run and jump on me and I'm not ready for it. Dope. So getting ourselves like, and it's hard because if you're in pain all the time, like you're consistently going to put yourselves in positions to not do those things, right? But like, what more do you want than Leo to come and jump on you and play with you right now, right? Like, and if you couldn't do that because your neck or your back or your hip, whatever hurts, well, then shit's going to start going downhill in other areas of your life too. So
100%. And we have to realize that, you know, when pain is very abstract, it's very complex. It's a huge barrier for health. And that makes it a very huge barrier for training and for transitioning through life. Because we have to recognize two things. Is number one is when we train a lot, and, you know, both of us have trained in different sports, we do damage to our body to a certain extent. We can't maintain that into our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Some people can, but usually that's a genetic predisposition. So you have to modify how you move, and you have to continue to focus on movement throughout the longevity of your life. And that changes through the transitions of your life. But the other thing is that if when it comes to persistent pain, pain is not a tissue issue. That's another thing that we have to look at, is that when we have soreness in the body, we automatically assume that there's something wrong with my joint, there's something wrong with my muscle or my tissue. It's not always the case. A lot of the times your body is just putting the brakes on and is like, hey, I just want to have a conversation with you. So I'm protecting this joint from this particular movement because you haven't done your due diligence to make sure that that shit is moving well. So it'll put the brakes on before, so that you know that there's, you know, you're up on a boundary. That doesn't mean that we stop doing the movement. That doesn't mean that we stop acknowledging what's going on. It means that we start modifying and we start having a better conversation and we start programming more intelligently. And as trainers and coaches, it's not about going, oh, your back hurts. Okay, so we're not going to hinge. We're not going to deadlift. We're not going to do this. Oh, I can't do anything with my client now. I don't really know what to do. You know what? I'm going to refer you out and you need to go source that up. Most of the time, going to come back and be like, my PT just said I've got like some back strain, but I don't know, like I need to know what to do. So if we can empower clients to have the self-leadership skills to be, oh, I can deadlift, I can hinge. I just might not need to be able to pull from the ground. I might need to reduce the range, reduce the volume and load. Maybe I should be doing some stuff on my own at home. Is clients want to be empowered to take back ownership over their health. And as trainers and coaches, we have the most contact time than any other healthcare professional. So we have a huge opportunity to help facilitate that.
Yeah. So, you know, let's look at this. And let's say I'm someone who's, all right, like I'm choosing right now to make a personal investment in myself to want to get healthier. And I don't know what that means quite yet. I don't have any specific goals. I just know I need to make a change because things aren't right. And so this person's going through these podcasts and listening to different people talk about what's going on. And we're in this spot that, and I would say a lot of people are going to get stopped here to where they're like, yeah, I mean, I want to do all the things, but I'm fucking hurt. I'm in pain. This is broken. Where do we start with that process? You mentioned self-responsibility or personal leadership with this process. If I'm in pain or I'm not actively doing shit right now to help my body and I'm kind of embarking on this journey, where do I start? Because maybe the physical therapist, physio, the chiropractor, my doctor has been like, you're fine, right? Like go move. But like inside you're like, oh, that doesn't feel good. Like I hurt all the time. How do you help your clients? Because Sarah, you've really built a business around being the gap between the physiotherapist and then like performance. And like, hey, like, yeah, just because the physio has released you doesn't mean you're ready to go, right? Ice skate and go slam by huge men or women or, you know what I mean? Lift heavy weights. Like, where do we start in that self-regulation process?
Yeah, and that's a great question because the starting point is we got to look at the easiest barriers of entry, right? We figure out where somebody walks through the doors. What do we need to do? You know, I'm a big proponent of assessment and testing, screening the human body to make sure that we can see where people's deficits are, because where people have pain isn't necessarily the actual issue. And that's first and foremost, is that when we're dealing with pain in the bodies, we have to recognize where people move well and where they don't first, so that we can have a better holistic picture of what's going on. But from there, it's, you know, in all of the research that I've done, of sitting on boards that specifically look at pain management, gentle movement of every single joint, every single day can have a profound effect on how we move. It can clean a lot of stuff up. So one of the things that I, have developed over the years has been, different programs and different ways of being able to holistically look at that. And daily durability was really built on that, which is, hey, if we just look at some of the most ancient forms of movement, Qigong, Tai Chi, that's all about really fluid, rhythmic, slow, progressive movement every single day of your life. What is the minimum amount of requirement involved? Well, 15 minutes. So it's the 1% of your day approach. Most people can dedicate 15 minutes to their day to move. Anything, and that is through surveys of thousands of people that I've worked with, through people that have the program, is that 30 minutes is usually too much. 15 minutes is the right amount of time. 15 minutes of moving every single joint and going through the range that you are comfortable in. That has shown to have a profound effect of cleaning up a lot of the body's pain responses. It's also one of the things that we don't talk enough about in our industry's recovery. So moving your joints flushes inflammatory fluids out of the system. It removes congestion. It gets your lymphatic system going, which is the natural waste removal system of our body. And it helps lubricates the joints, because we have to look at the joints first, because as we age, we lose that joint health, which means that our joints become stiffer over time because we're getting older. So if we can get to the joint level first, then all of a sudden we can start to reduce that natural protective mode that your body is trying to put on. We can peel away a layer of that internal parking brake. Then we can start to get into more of the tissues specifically, because those joints can actually move more. If we try hammering, stretching, and hammering, static stretches into tissue that is already tense and toned and doesn't want to move, then the neurological response to that isn't going to be positive. So we want to get into more rhythmic, slow, progressive joint movement that is then connected to more of that mind-body approach, which some people think is fluffy, but it works.
Yeah. It's so interesting is, now being in the industry over a decade, to where, someone asked me like, what works or what's good? And I'm like, you know what, at this point in my career, everything works, right? Like I've been wowed by the woo-iest shit, to where it's like, yeah, it's muscle testing. Does that N equals 1 is a real thing. So like, yeah, like, you know what? Like, that's cool. If that fucking resonates with you, I don't give a shit, right? Like there's a system called Voila, which is like emotional tension stored in your muscles.
Yep.
And like, there was a day where I was like, my back was just seized up, and like, I was going to go get some fascial stretch therapy, which is just some guided stretching. And it's nice to sit there and have someone else stretch you. And Kimmy was like, oh, something's going on. So she did a little thing, and like, we kind of processed the thought, and my back just goes, whoosh, and I'm like, yeah, okay. Yep, this work. I don't know. I don't know anything anymore, because it's tough, right? This game, like, I look at the industry to where it's like, fuck, I don't know what's going on, and I spend every day in it. Like, I have a pretty good perspective of the fitness industry across the board from most people, and I still am like, yeah, that works. You know what I mean? And so like, I can only imagine what the everyday consumer who's getting their information from the fucking Instagram and YouTube and Facebook and just like not even in it, even knows. Because like, I think about like, my parents or someone, to where it's like, yeah, you're not going to go to the gym. Like, you're not going to make that kind of time, but can I give you tools to like learn how to use your body so you can go garden for the day and not be wrecked for a month? Right. Exactly. Because like, you don't understand. I'm like, yeah, garden for 15 minutes, then go rest for 20 minutes and try it again, because that's a 1-to-1 work ratio. But they're like, no, I try, like, because it seems like such a simple thing. And like, that's the biggest thing for me, where I think durability really fits in, is like, you don't even need to look at like building yourself this workout program per se. Like, you need to go squat and sets and reps, but like, let's just teach you about why moving the body is important and how that's going to reset the tone. So, when you're starting to look at this game, I think that so many people get caught up like, well, I don't know what to do. How many sets and reps do I do? How, like, do I know if I'm doing it right? Especially when you're doing something like a joint circle or like a closed chain movement or a movement in some capacity. And it's like, how do you guide your people, especially in a remote setting, to kind of give them that understanding about where their body's at in space? Because most people don't know how to move their body in space. So let alone where you haven't had someone going like, why do you look like a baby giraffe trying to do this? And you're like, I don't know. I didn't know I did. Right. Because even professional athletes will look like a baby giraffe doing a new movement. Like, some of the best NFL players in the world, like, you put them on something else and they're like, yeah, you look like a really unathletic person. Right. But like, you're great on the football field or the hockey rink. So where do people start in like learning how to govern their body, or understanding like, oh, that hurt or that didn't hurt, or where do I start with this movement?
So I think, a big part of it is, with the concepts around durability and how I like to approach it, is first and foremost, we have an industry that is built upon 60-minute sessions. That's it, right? That's a marketing tool. There's nothing in science and physiological biology that says you can only move for 60 minutes a day, and that's what you need to do. So the durability approach is really looking at extending beyond the traditional model. And that means if you want people to move more, it cannot be in the gym. It just can't, because not everybody likes to go to the gym. Not everybody likes exercise either. And when we actually talk to pain patients, 90% of them don't want to exercise because they either don't feel confident, they've tried it, it hasn't worked. There's a lot of fear on that as well. So one of the biggest things is exploratory movement. So when you start, there's a difference. If we're talking about a joint circle, like let's say a CARS, an FRC, that's a very structured movement. But if we're talking about circular mobility or exploring movement, then the client has an opportunity to learn how their body moves first before you start coaching them on how to do it maybe more efficiently, whatever that means, right? We have to figure out a way to create meaningful movement for a client, because when it's meaningful, when it's simple, and when it's practical to them, they will continue to do it. And I think that is one of the disconnects that a lot of the times with trainers and coaches, and I mean, I've fallen into this as well, is that we're like, you need to do this many reps, this many sets, you need to do it this way, it needs to look like this. None of that makes any sense to a client that doesn't have the education that we do, and it might not make sense to them anyways. If we think about a squat, there's no one way to squat, right? It's the same concept. It's what feels good to you. What's the foot position that feels good for you, right? What range feels good for you? My shoulder circle is going to be very different than somebody who has had a shoulder injury, and we're trying to work through that, right? So then it becomes really the behavioral side of coaching a client and understanding how do they cognitively learn, meeting them where they're at, knowing what the anatomical range of that joint should be, but then adapting that to where they're at right now. And then creating some form of meaning around that. People want to be out of pain. So if you can get them in a session moving and exploring their own body shape and how they feel, how they sense what's going on in their body, and then all of a sudden they start moving better throughout the time frame of you working with them, it's not going to happen in one session. Then all of a sudden that becomes meaningful, because hey, I could pick my son up and my back didn't hurt. Mm-hmm. I could garden and I totally forgot that I had this thing with my shoulder. So that is meaningful. When people can continue to enjoy their quality of life, that is when shit sticks, mm-hmm. right? So that's a big part of it. So when I'm working with a client, I don't say you need to do this many reps, this many sets. My program is a follow-along program where it's fully narrated, and there's a reason for that, is that people learn visually. I need to see what's going on. If I'm not talking to them and they're just listening, they actually take in a lot more sensory feedback. So there's science on that. And that's why yoga videos work so well. Mm-hmm. But if I'm coaching somebody, it's very different. But a lot of that is, how does it feel? What's coming up for you right now? Where else do you feel it in the body? Because pain's a sensation, like anything else. Your brain doesn't recognize the difference. It's just like, I feel like I don't like this over here. I want to feel like that over there, right? There's an emotional connection to that. So if we can tap into what the client is really feeling and understanding, and allow them to dictate the conversation versus us saying you need to move it this way. I'm much more of an exploratory movement person over the last 5 years. Because the last 5 years of working with a lot of people with chronic pain and also trauma, that's a big part of getting them through and reducing their symptoms, is really connecting to what's meaningful for them. Not how we in the industry think we need to dictate it.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's a spot where so many people are kind of stuck, and it kind of limits them from wanting to push further into fitness. It's not that they're not solution aware. Like, yeah, I know there's fitness programs. I know there's trainers, right? I know I have a problem. I'm problem aware, and that like I have limitations with my body that won't go do things going forward. But taking that next step is a block for whatever reason. How did you get into looking more at pain and looking at this movement and durability? And did you have an experience in your life that like kind of shut you down, that forced you into this, or where, because it seems like it's something you're very passionate about?
Yeah, I sure did, Sam.
It's different when you ask those questions when you know the person and you know the answer, but like you still have to ask it.
Well, thank thank you for asking. Yes, I can.
Here's your beach ball.
Right? Exactly. It's funny because I think the human experience offers us so much. And so very similar to you is that in high school, I was kind of like, I loved playing on teams. I just didn't have the athleticism to actually, get into the senior levels. I had a lot of heart, but I was short, still am. And I love to like try out for like high jump and like, sprint and things that were just genetically not my bag. So I got into long distance running really early in life, at 18, because I was like, oh, so I can do this on my own. And there's other people running, but I get to do it on my own. So technically it's kind of a team and everybody gets a medal at the end. Yeah, I'll do that. That's amazing. So I started half marathons and full marathons, 18, 19 years old. In my 20s, that shit was awesome. I ran around the world, raised a bunch of money for different nonprofit organizations, which is a big passion, was a big passion.
Yeah, how much have you raised now?
I don't know now, but I did raise 2 million during that 10-year time.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And so my goal was 1 million. Then I did a TED Talk, and that had was a great opportunity because a lot of organizations were like, hey,
a TED Talk while she ran on a treadmill, for the record.
Yeah, which I think I was the only person that did that to date. And also, when we were slight sidebar, when we were starting to like do the rehearsals, I was like, oh, so be fine. I didn't test it out. I was like, so I just walk on the treadmill, do the slides, talk, to the team. And then I was like, hey, straight bat out of hell, got out, started running. The first minute I was like, I can't do this. I got to talk because I have to talk for like 12 minutes?
12 minutes, yeah.
Yeah. And so it's really funny. If you watch the first little bit, you can actually see I'm out of breath and I'm actually like trying to put the thing down. Anyways, but the point of that was when I was, after my mom had passed, I really wanted to really focus on mental health. And I really wanted to focus on violence against women. And so I got really heavy into overcommitting myself for a lot of different runs. And I also was like, International Women's Day, sweet. It's the 100th anniversary. I'm gonna run 100K because why not? 29 years old, I can do it. Go out and I'm training. I'm doing all the right things. I'm doing all the recovery. I'm doing the strength training. I'm working with a physical therapist, physiotherapist, working with an RMT, doing all the stuff. And, in your 20s, you can do a lot of amazing things. I went out, I started at 4 a.m, started running. It was, unfortunately, it was raining ice. So it was very cold. And if you know anything about Vancouver, we have a lot of mountains. So of course, naturally, I like to put all the mountains into my run because that's my natural terrain. Why wouldn't you, right? And around 74 kilometers, after 11 and a half hours of being out there, my body shut down. I literally, no joke, I can literally look at because I live in Kitsilano, and this is where I had to stop my run. And I texted my dad, who was my support group, and I said, I can't do it. I can't run anymore. I just fell down onto my knees. Every joint in my body was on fire. I'd had stomach pains that went undiagnosed for about 6 months, and I ignored it. And this is me as a movement specialist, ignoring my pain, pushing myself way too far, overcommitting myself. And at that moment, I realized that I'd failed my body, that I had not practiced what I preached, and that I need to take a step back. I'd done some amazing things, but I was in a position where I was doing all the things wrong. And that took a year and a half for me and there was nothing wrong with any of my joints. That was just literally too much strain on everything. I don't know how I didn't have an injury, to be honest with you. But everything blew up at that same time. So I had a lot of like nerve sensation in my body. It's something I still have to actually deal with on an ongoing basis. It turns out my appendix needed to be taken out. So we did that. It burst because of how dehydrated my body was. And I still managed to finish the very last marathon. I walked most of it in Lebanon, in Beirut. And because this all happened a year and a half before the end of the 10-year mark, and managed to walk that marathon, cross that finish line. Was like, this is an era for me. I have learned my lessons, and I have ran the marathon of peace, which was my goal. And there we have it. And so through that process, what it allowed me to really do is to learn from experience of, yeah, we do need to emotionally connect with what we're doing. We need to focus on that. It's not just about biomechanics and muscles and tendons and tissues. It's the mindset, and it's about breaking behavioral patterns. And for me, it was endurance, having to always hustle, overcommit and not say no. And that's a whole nother conversation. But the behavioral patterns that us humans hold on to, we need to unlearn. And that was one of the ones that I need to unlearn. So from that moment forward, I took a step back and I was like, that's not my vision of success. I should never fail my body. Mm-hmm. And that at that moment, I started moving with more heart and less of the mindset of just having to go and overachieve. And through that, the only thing that I could do was actually the program that I created, which was moving every joint daily. And I would sit there and be like, I'm going to move my spine. And so I would move my spine in whatever capacity I could, standing. Sometimes it was ground-based if I wanted something that was a little bit more gentle. Shoulders, let's just move the shoulders. Let's just move the neck. Let's just move the hips. And that is how I started kind of getting back into movement. And that allowed me to start getting back into strength training as well. And being able to get back to the barbell. I love barbell work. I don't say I train, I work out, because I'm never on an actual consistent program, especially with a kid now. But the biggest consideration is that happened when I was, 30 years old, and I'm 41 now. I had a baby 2.5 years ago. And during my pregnancy, my back started to flare up again. And when I birthed him out into the world, I went through 17 months of chronic pain. Joints were going out. My neck was always sore. My back was always sore. I would spend time crying in the bathroom because I couldn't stand up erect. I couldn't pick my son up, which led to me having a little bit of postpartum depression, which is also very common. And it takes 2 years for a mother's body to get back to, some form of normalcy. You're never going to have a pre-baby body again. That's just not in the cards. And I'm totally okay with that. But the point that I'm trying to make is that there will be transitions in life where when we have something traumatic happen to us, and in my 30s, running that amount of distance was traumatic. It was beautiful, but it was also traumatic. That started to segue back into a decade later when I have my son. And now he's 2.5 years old. My body is finally feeling a sense of normalcy. And there's some stuff that creeps up, but I can go for a 5 or 10K run now without having pain. I can lift weights without having pain. So I think it's important to understand that the longevity piece, the long-term health, also needs to be a big focal point, because what we do now is great, but what are you going to do a year from now, 5 years from now, maybe 10 years from now? What is that going to look like? Mm-hmm. Right? Similar to the conversation you had with your mom about the wrists. Mm-hmm. Your mom's like, why are you doing it? I'm like, well, because you want to be able to move them like this for the rest of your life. That's the key. What we do now echoes in eternity.
You're so Russell Crowe. What's happening when we're moving our joints? Because it seems so, like, I get it. Like, the logical things is like, if it hurts, don't move it. Like that, like rest and digest and rice and yada yada, everything we've been told. And we're sitting here, and it's not like we're trying to challenge authority but like, what's happening when we're moving a joint? Like, even like, how is a wrist circle? And I know Missy and Ryan, if you guys listen to that show, they talk about that, and we do some wrist circles. And what's happening in our body when we start moving joints and things start moving around, and we start moving that shoulder, even if we can't move up here, we're just moving to here, and we're just doing whatever that looks like. Why is our body like that?
Well, I mean, a couple of things is that if we're talking about what happens when we're moving a joint, there's a lot of work being done. So the number one thing is the conversation, the brain to body connection. So you are having a conversation with that joint right now as you're moving it. It's giving you information on how it moves, how it feels, what feels good, what doesn't, so that you can adapt to how it's feeling. The reality is that when we have a joint that doesn't move well, or there's pain, is we naturally don't want to go into it. But that's the worst thing you can do, because a stagnant joint, if you look at a pond that hasn't moved for a long period of time, there's a lot of shit in it. The same thing goes to your body. Your body's water. So it needs to be able to move to get the inflammatory fluids, the congestion out of the actual tissues and joint. And what we're doing is we're increasing circulation, we're increasing oxidation, we're increasing lymphatic drainage. Your lymphatic system has to remove waste from your body or things hurt. That's bona fide, just science 101. So what we're doing is we're lubricating those joints more. And what happens is once we lubricate something, we have access to more range of motion, more usable range of motion. Then we can start bumping up against that boundary, like, oh, so maybe if I just take that a little bit further, you know, it might feel a little bit better. Mm-hmm. If in standing, I don't feel comfortable, maybe if I lie down and decompress my body and I go through the same motion, maybe that changes it too. Right? So it's also finding the posture and position that's going to be the most effective for somebody. And sometimes that's a lot of the times trial and error, right? Yeah. Is figuring out how that works. But what we're doing is the conversation is the big piece, because if you can just start having a conversation around, okay, I know it's going to hurt a bit, because with pain, it's going to hurt. Even with pain, with full-blown pain patients, that's what we say. It's going to hurt, but you just have to work through it a little bit and know that it's safe. If you know it's safe, because it's not a tissue damage issue, it's a pain cycle issue. Your brain doesn't want to let go of that because it's trying to protect it. But if you know that the tissue is fine, just keep moving it. And let's see how many different of ranges of motion we can get in there, whether it be short lever work and just keeping things really tight and close to the body. Maybe it's moving that and just getting the head into a different position so that we can get a little bit more range of motion, elasticity through the joint complexes that attach. There's so many ways you can go with it. Yeah. But the biggest factor is the client needs to be seen and heard and validated that there is something going on there. They also need to understand that it's safe. Mm-hmm. Because if we can feel safe in our body, all of a sudden things do free up. Because ideally what we're actually talking about is just breaking the pain cycle, which is in here. Mm-hmm. Not in here. Well, it's in here and it's in here.
Yeah. So. And that's, I mean, how do you guide someone who just has a hard time getting past that emotional barrier? Because that's so fucking hard. Like, it sounds easy because we've done it so much, but like to the person who's sitting there is like, yeah, I hear that. I don't disagree with what you're saying, but like, I blasted my shoulder in high school playing football, or I got in a car wreck and my neck's never been the same. I'm past this. I get what you're saying, but that's for the kids. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. But like, that's a very real thing. Like, we both heard that a ton, where it's like, did you hear a word I just said? Right. But it's like, I get it. Like, there's that resistance. Where does that person who's just so stuck in pain that they can't even move their body? And cause like, I love it. Like, first thing you're like, hey, maybe just laying down creates less sympathetic tone in your body. You're like, and I go, oh yeah, standing erect would be very stressful for someone's body who doesn't like that position. Like, laying down might be a great way to do it. Yeah. But like, I don't put myself there that often to do it. Like, fuck, if I lay down and start moving my body like that, I'm falling asleep.
Right.
But like, you know, I like the way you're talking about helping people find, you know, where the safety. And you work with so many people who are just not ready to move, right? Or like, holy fuck, like getting them to do a squat is like weeks down the road. Yeah. So what's your dialogue with that person to make them feel good about this process? Because I heard you say, you know, you're going to be in pain, but like, that's the challenging thing to hear, right? Oh, like, yeah. I want to do this so I'm not in pain. What the fuck? Well, I mean, you're going to put me in more pain? Where do we go?
Yeah, the hurt scale. There's a hurt scale, right? So we have to think about it from the two things. Is number one is, let's take a client who does want to squat. So I'm working with an athlete or somebody who's like, literally, I want to be able to squat again. My knees hurt, my back hurts. I don't like it right now. Okay, so I know the end goal that they want to achieve. So in my mind, what I do is I go through what joints do we need to look at that's going to help them achieve that better. Right? Obviously thinking about what's going on with maybe their back or their knees, but all of the joints that need to be focused on. So hips, knees, ankle as well. And so a couple things is the holistic approach. So when I'm working with a client that has pain, I don't want to just hammer them, be like, we're just going to talk about your lower back the whole session, because all that's doing is re-triggering the pain cycle. So I want to get them into positions that they feel confident in, that they can move well in. So for instance, I might get them into a quadruped rocking position. I might get them into working their ankle mobility first. That feels good, that there's no pain sensation at all because we're not touching the area. And I kind of look at it through moving distally to proximally. So I get them feeling good of moving other things in their body, exploring that movement, exploring, you know, what's meaningful to them to there. And then I'll start going, okay, so this all feels really great because we're improving A, B, and C, whatever that is. Now let's start to go into a couple other areas. And that might be part of like, hey, lying them down and getting them to do a little bit of work that they normally wouldn't want to. But what I've done is I've primed a lot of other, a lot of behavior. I've primed a lot of areas that haven't hurt so that they can acknowledge that pain isn't all in the body all the time, right? So there's certain areas of the body that are firing and re-triggering, but if we can distract them, and pain distraction is a thing, if we can distract them, working joints and working movements that don't cause them discomfort and don't fire that pain, get them breathing, what we can actually start to do is have a sympathetic system that significantly reduces so that we can actually move them into maybe some of the harder stuff that used to flare some shit up, which now there might be some sensation, but what we've done is we've reduced a lot of that sympathetic tone, a lot of that high level pain to a point that might mean that they're ready to start working into, right? So it's really kind of, it's all behavioral coaching though, right? It's looking at someone's behavior and figuring out where's my entry point here, right? I can't put them into a squat position. I can't put them and start hammering their, you know, their hips and their lower back and their spine right away, because they're just they're not going to enjoy it. And they're going to be like, that hurts, that hurts, that hurts, that hurts. That's all that comes up for them. So how can I get them moving? I'm going to look at other joints and other movements that give me good sensation to override some of the bad sensation, and then try to meet them halfway, and then start working on some of the emotional stuff there.
I love it. Yeah, it's you know, finding a way to be successful is so key, right? And like, okay, this is where I'm at. It may not be where you want to be, but like, it's a part of the process. Is there a timeline for how long it should take someone to like get their body back up and running? Like, I know like people are probably like, how long should I expect to do this kind of stuff? Like, I just want to go run, or I want to go do this. Like, how do we know how to govern ourselves? Because I think the biggest fears when we start embarking on this journey is that like we have a relapse or something happens and we get knocked back down again. Then it turns into like, well, fuck it, lost hope, right? Yeah. What should people be anticipating? Like, if I'm in pain or I'm like not able to do shit, is there a timeline? Is there a guided, like, here's how long you should do shit before you start asking different questions?
So here's a funny thing about our industry, is that our industry loves to just say 6 weeks. 6 weeks, fucking everything. Everything. You pop a human out of a small hole, 6 weeks, you can totally get back to working out. I love that. I'm like, so let me get this straight. If I naturally birth my child and I strain my ankle, it's the same fucking time frame? No. So 6 weeks, I just want to put that on the table, is not correct. Everybody has a different timeline as well. Okay. So I'm just saying, everybody asks me like, you postpartum mom, 6 weeks? I'm like, no, sweetie, 6 months. Yeah. Baby.
A baby out of your vagina, ankle sprain.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Even C-section, I'm like, no, you give yourself some time, man. This is the only time where you get to like literally just eat bonbons on a couch. So have at it.
Damn it. I want to have a C-section.
Right? So I think, you know, but I mean, we do have to give people hope. So, you know, one of the things that I looked at was like 30 days works really great for a lot of things, right? Same thing with the 15 minutes a day. If you can get somebody moving 15 minutes every single day for 30 days, you'll clean a lot of stuff up. So there's two conversations here. There's one, if someone's in acute pain, that's going to be something very different than persistent chronic pain, right? Acute pain is an actual tissue or joint injury. Okay, so that has to be referred out. You need to have a green light. There's some rehab that needs to have happened, and then you can start moving them back into regular movement. But you know, when we think about the fascial system and tendons and ligaments, these are very, very hard, like literally, you take a scalpel. If you've ever done any type of like cadaver work, it's hard to remodel that, to get through that. So it's going to take some time to really kind of work those tendons and ligaments and those joints out. But if you do it daily, it obviously speeds it up. And that I think is the number one thing, is most people don't do stuff daily. A daily movement practice that is specifically targeted to what you want to achieve down the line can have significant and profound effects if you do it every day. So in 30 days, you can have a a large amount of cleaning up of the whole body, and then you can kind of see what's left over. So when I'm working one-on-one with a client, is we do the same thing, is we do a full assessment, a full screen. So again, movement screen, that's exploratory. It's not a diagnostic test. We screen the whole body, and then we work for 30 days on specifically doing the whole body, but cleaning up the big linchpins. And at the end of those 30 days, I'll have a much better perspective of what is going to be the longevity here, because what we need to do is we need to see how somebody's body responds to what we're applying. That, I think, is one of the things that we tend to forget, is that we're given kind of the 6-week rule, or people are like, how long? And I'm like, well, I mean, generally speaking, 6 to 12 weeks is a good time frame for you to be able to move back into what it is that you want to do. But I don't know how your body responds. I don't know how your tissue responds, how your joints respond. What about your lifestyle? How are you sleeping? How much water are you drinking? What's your stress levels, right? Like, what does your daily life look like? Because all of that is also going to be part of the conversation. If I'm working with first responders that are on shift work, it's a lot longer for them to move through rehabilitation or move through some of the ailments they're focusing on, because they have to wear a uniform for 12 hours out of the day, 4 on, 4 off. Their circadian rhythms are all over the place. Stress is high, all of those things. So it really is a much bigger question of just like how long. But if people can think 6 to 12 weeks, generally speaking, every single day for 30 days, let's see what's left over, and then go from there. Another caveat is, once somebody is out of pain, you have to maintain what you've done. Okay, that's preventative care. We have to maintain. It's not just, I feel better, I'm going to stop all the things, and then people re-injure. And that's one of the biggest reasons why. You've stopped the conversation with your body. You've stopped the conversation with the area that you injured.
Yeah.
Relationships don't work when you stop communicating. Right?
Across the board, right? Movement, everything. And I think that's a huge point. Like, yeah, you did all the things for 6 weeks, 6 months. And that's why most diets or most like fitness supplement programs, whatever kind of company they work, is because naturally, I don't care if you're whatever the new MLM supplement is to whatever, but like, oh, you went from like not doing anything to like, oh yeah, you're having a green smoothie every morning, and like, oh, you're going on a walk every day, and oh, you get some sunshine every day. Like you just naturally start doing all the things. But then what happens is like, oh, I got the response I wanted, and you just kind of stop. And I think that's a huge thing to look at. No, keep that shit going, right? If that's what's making you feel good, keep fucking rocking it, right? Like, I mean, even if it's not progression, right? It's still a great conversation for you to keep maintaining what you have going on now.
Yeah, and if we look at Qigong, for instance, and Tai Chi, right? 108 movements has not changed for thousands of years. Okay, they're not adding more movements.
Yeah.
They're not adding more progressions, more sets, more reps. Do these movements every day, all the time for your 95 years of life. And these are cultures that have the longest longevity.
Yeah. It's amazing to see how popular Tai Chi is in Canada, right? Like I've been on both coasts of Canada, Toronto and Vancouver a number of times. Obviously I'm from the West Coast. But like when you walk around Portland, you don't see like a group of, and it happens to be the little Asian people, but like you don't see like a bunch of white people hanging out at the waterfront doing Tai Chi.
Yeah.
Like in Portland or Seattle or San Francisco, not as much in their big Asian populated cities. But in Canada, like Toronto, I saw like every morning I saw it on a walk, right? And I see, you know, and I've been up there and like you see, and it's like, wow, I love it though. I love seeing the group of like 70-year-old Asian ladies next to the river doing Tai Chi in the morning. Cause it's like, that's dope. I'm glad I hope that you are able to live a life that's not in pain, right? Yeah. Would I love for you to go deadlift a kettlebell? For sure. That would be awesome if you did it. But like pumped that you're just moving the body, right?
Oh yeah.
That's I mean, shit, if that's our linchpin of dysfunction, just by not moving, as we go back to our original, conversation, that it's like, if we can give you one thing from this is just to help inspire you to want to move your body, then I hope that that's what you take away and realize like, hey, it doesn't need to be formalized. It doesn't need to be sets and reps. Like just start developing a conversation with, oh, that doesn't feel good, and not being scared to want to keep moving it. You may not ramp into like red line pain, but like that doesn't work. Like you don't do that to your car, right? Like, oh, my car's not running well, so I'm going to floor it everywhere I go, right? Like, but like we do that with everything else we do. Like, oh, that's not going well, so let me just fucking, and that's just the way we're culture, right? That's just
survival. Yeah, it's survival. That's all it is. It's, I'm going to hammer it hard because the cheetah's chasing me.
Yep.
Right?
And that's just all we can do. So to be able to have a lesson around pulling back and like accepting where you're at and acknowledging this is where I'm at and this is where I go from here. And I don't need to stress about what the future of it looks like because I'm just worried about getting out of pain.
Yeah.
Sarah, what resources do you have and what opportunities do you have for people to work with you if they're like really loving this message and like, oh man, I hear this. Like, I'm not ready for the program to go lift weights or learn how to lift weights yet. I'm not ready to go do, John Rustin stuff. Like I just need to want to move my body. How can they work with you or what systems do they have to work with you?
Yeah, for sure. So I've got a few different things. I've got a couple different programs, products that are online. Daily Durability is one of the biggest ones. That's the signature. And that's really standing joint mobility and ground-based movement. So we've got 30 different videos of all standing joint movement. And each day you go through a different major joint complex. So spine, hips, shoulders, lower body, which are ankles, knees, hips, upper body, which is wrists, elbows, shoulders again, and then neck and spine, because the neck needs a little bit of love. And then there's 30 ground-based mobility flows. And so that's going to be using more of the fascial work and kind of getting into long myofascial lines, decompressing the body. It's a 30-day program, but you get lifetime access. So the goal there is to really do the bookends of your day, which is 15 minutes in the morning to really kind of get your body energized, and then 15 minutes at night, which helps for quality of sleep. So that's the first product that anybody, whether you're 12 or 102, can do. And then I've also got—
But if you're 103 or 11, go fuck yourself.
Right? Yeah. So what's your secret? You're over 100. I'm going to hire you. So I've got that. And then I've also started some durable movement classes. And these classes are online, the last 4-week series. And then I'm going to be starting those up again in person as well as live stream, as things continue here. But that's restorative care. So that's a full 75-minute restorative class that's really focused on just getting deep into the enhancing the body's recovery systems. Great for rest days. And then obviously one-on-one is always an option. I do functional assessments. And then I've got something for trainers and coaches. So I've got a 6-week durable coaching course that basically looks at active recovery. So it's designed to work in and around your training. And they're active recovery movement sessions where you actually learn how to integrate and assimilate corrective exercise programming, daily durability into your workouts. Again, bookends, warm up, cool down. And then it really just goes into the foundational patterns: hinge, squat, push, pull, locomotion, and carry. And there's something really, really for everybody.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sarah, thank you so much for taking some time away from your new baby and family to come talk to us about making our bodies feel better and move better, and sharing the knowledge you've developed over the last, I don't want to age you, but, number of years and a couple of decades of work to learn about how you can help everybody achieve, the freedoms that you have in your life and live the quality of life that you have, knowing that you've come through your own ailments and challenges. So thank you so much for sharing time with us. We really appreciate you. Guys and gals, if you really liked hearing Sarah's message, please reach out to her. She would love nothing more than to talk with you about what's going on and to help you get through it. So please reach out to her if you're going through and this resonated with you. But without further ado, Miss Sarah Jameson. Miss Sarah Jameson, thank you so much. I went to her wedding. I don't know why I always say Miss. Probably because she doesn't have her last name switched.
That's true. I do.
Yeah, but thank you so much. Appreciate you. And tell James and Leo I said hi, and I can't wait to come to Canada again and come see you guys.
Yeah. Thanks, Sam.
Bye.